That dog's not bothering you. Hey, that dog's not bothering you. Uh-uh. Hey, welcome to Sparks. So, you met Lucy a minute ago. Lucy is our family dog. Very sweet, loving dog. She's part Jack Russell, part Beagle, part Hound, part a little bit of everything, I think. She's a rescue. She rescued us about 4 or 5 years ago. Loves hanging out with people, loves spending time, does the snuggle thing, is smart, is fun to be around, likes to play, until she sees another dog. And then she goes crazy. Something that veterinarians have told me is sort of part of the dog's brain. They go limbic is the phrase they use. They kind of lose their minds a little bit, and the only thing that they're focusing on is what's in front of them, which is this other dog, right? And as you saw in the clip, Lucy sits perched on this chair like a cat, and when she sees another dog, which is 30 yards away from our house, walking along the street, she just goes ballistic and wants to jump through the window and kill the dog. And it's terrible, right? She's destroyed our furniture. When we've had her in our car, she's destroyed the interior of our car. She even started chewing on the wooden front door of our house and took pieces of that out because she went limbic. So what I've tried to do is to kind of get her out of that. What the famous dog trainer Cesar Millan does is he tends to, when the dog gets limbic, it's not listening to you. Nothing exists except that problem. So he pokes him in the throat a little bit to kind of wake him up, going, "Hey, pay attention." And it works. And so what I've done, my version of that with Lucy, is to sort of stand next to her, pet her, and tell her, "Hey, that dog's not bothering you." The dog literally doesn't even know Lucy's there, right? It's just walking along the street with its owner, and our dog is the one that's going crazy. And so it's taken a long time, but I finally got her to the point where I can now say, "Hey, that dog's not bothering you," and she'll stop barking and wanting to go through the window after this dog. As you saw, she's still whining, she's still shaking, she's still anxious. She's not out of the limbic phase yet, but she doesn't bark anymore most of the time. And so I've told you many times in these different sparks, and for those of you that know me, I tend to equate people's behavior with dogs' behavior a lot because I think we can learn a lot from dogs. There are people that are a lot like dogs, and here's a good example of one where I think people have gone limbic at times. If you get on YouTube, for example, and you'll find a bunch of stories about people that have just started arguments, started fights, started screaming matches with other people for the most innocent of behaviors, right? You'll see clips of guys who are fishing on public water, on a lake, on a river, in the ocean, and the homeowner becomes irate because the person is getting too close to their dock or getting too close to their boat or saying it's private property when it's really not. And they, you're going to get arrested, you're trespassing, I'm going to call the cops. And the people are filming this and they're going, "Look, I'm on public land, I'm on public water, and there's nothing you can do." But people are going crazy, right? There was one woman even, it was actually pretty funny, that this woman, it was early in the morning and this fisherman was there and he was fishing and he wasn't bothering anybody. And he had a GoPro on, so he was filming. This woman comes out in her nightgown, she's a heavy-set woman, and she's screaming and cursing and yelling at this guy, and he's like, "Look, I'm not leaving, so too bad, whatever." So she jumps off her dock into the water, ostensibly to scare the fish away so that the fisherman will then leave. Well, this guy decides he's going to stay there and fish anyways, even though he knows he's not going to catch any more fish. Well, the lady goes completely crazy at that point and screaming match the whole bit. So there's that. Another example of this crazy Karen, crazy Kyle. I guess Kyle is now the male version of the Karens that we're talking about. People are getting upset because another person maybe parks on the street in front of their home. Now, it's not that they're on their lawn or on their property, they're just parking on the street, which is what everybody should be allowed to do. It's a public street, but these people are going crazy because I don't want you in front of my house. Same kind of going limbic. And you see these confrontations, and cops get called, and violence takes place, and people are threatening, and people are, right? The latest one that I found was when a guy had spent a lot of time and money restoring this vintage car. And he was at a gas station getting gas, and he was with his young daughter. And this guy comes up and does the same kind of thing because he felt that the guy who owned the car was showing off and making everybody look bad, so that he started an argument. And the guy's saying, look, my 9-year-old daughter's in the car. This has nothing to do with you. I'm just getting gas. I'm not bothering anybody. I wasn't even making eye contact with you. I wasn't even talking to you, right? So there's all kinds of stories like this. And it makes me wonder where it comes from. It's kind of like Lucy, right? When she sees a dog walking by, and all of a sudden she goes crazy for no good reason. It's not like the dog is antagonizing her or saying anything to her or prancing on the dog's yard or any of that. It's just sort of, I just happen to be there. And so I think there's a connection between those things, and it makes me wonder why. And maybe you've had an experience like this with a Karen or a Kyle too, and you go, what's wrong with people? They're just crazy. They're almost like they're looking for a fight. They're looking for an argument. And there are some experts who will argue that the reasons why we see so many examples of these Karens and whatever is that people are afraid, right? They're afraid of losing control over their lives. They're afraid of things that are changing. Maybe they feel like their life is going to be different as other people gain more political or power or whatever. And so they're itching for a fight. They just want to try to preserve what they already have. You've seen this over the past few years with voters, and the world's going to hell in a handbasket unless you vote for this particular candidate because he or she is your champion and they'll protect you. And so that's one explanation. It's people that are afraid. And to be fair, when people are afraid, they'll do almost anything not to be afraid. So what do we do about this, right? How do we get past some of this crazy behavior that we're seeing people go all limbic? And what can we do to poke people in the neck to get them to sort of get distracted and sort of think about things in a different way? Because some of these things really don't matter, and they really aren't that important, despite all the energy and emotion that goes with them. So I've got this cream that I use whenever I get a heavy workout, or I overdo it and I get some tendonitis, or I get a minor injury. Some crazy mad scientist made this. My wife got a prescription for it. It's got lidocaine, which is kind of a painkiller, and an anti-inflammatory, and a steroid cream, all mixed in together. And you put this stuff on, and I'm telling you, man, it's not a placebo. Within a day, you can start feeling better, and it actually does more than just dull the pain. It actually facilitates the healing. And this stuff is magical, right? I use it all the time, and it works like you can't believe. And I know that this is going to sound a little crazy, but I think kindness is the ointment, like that cream, for dealing with the Karens and the Kyles of the world. There's plenty of examples, even as Christians. There's plenty of examples in the Bible of kindness, and examples of kindness, and why we should care about kindness. And in fact, I looked it up. In the NIV version of the Bible, there's 56 references to it, right? They reference kindness. The word kindness comes up 56 times in the Bible. So obviously it's something that God said, hey, this is pretty important. I want you to listen, because I know you're going to mess this up, and I know you need to pay attention to it. And I know that you need to do it every day. I know you need to sort of think about this and other things like humility and gentleness and patience and all that. But kindness is one of those things that we have to be very intentional and purposeful about, because it doesn't naturally come to us. It's something that we have to work at. And there's plenty of references in the Bible. There's Galatians 5:22, where they talk about the fruits of the Spirit. Colossians, I think it's what is it, 3:12, right? Where they say, clothe yourself in compassion and gentleness and kindness, that kind of thing. I love the one in Philippians where they say, you look, let everybody see that kindness is all about you, right? It's all over you, and it's a fundamental part of who you are. Because as Christians, we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to know better. We're supposed to have a better explanation or way of life and an understanding of things that most people who aren't Christians don't have. And so part of this is sort of saying, okay, well, when we talk about doing an action and being kind, what does that mean? Well, physiologically, it has an impact on us. Psychologically, socially. So when we extend kindness to others, or when kindness is extended to us, it has an impact on us, both at a physiological level, but also in how we relate to one another. And Simon Sinek is an anthropologist who spends a lot of time writing about leadership and people's connections to each other. And he talks about kindness and generosity as an important feature. And so I'm gonna insert a really quick 2-minute clip there to help you sort of understand why kindness matters and why generosity matters, and why, he doesn't say this, but why God thinks it's so important, right? And so let me show you that clip now, and you can get an idea of what he's talking about.
Acts of kindness, acts of generosity is how simple it is to make people feel good. I was walking down the streets of New York City, and a guy walking in front of me, his backpack opened and a bunch of paper fell out on the street. I didn't think much of it. I bent down, I gathered up the papers, handed them back to him, and pointed out that his bag had opened. Now, in our bodies, there's a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin is responsible for all the warm and fuzzies, unicorns and rainbows. It's responsible for all the warm feelings and connectedness we have with each other. Friendship, love. Huge amounts of oxytocin surge through a woman's body as she gives birth. This is what is responsible for the mother-child bond. Oxytocin binds human beings. There are many ways to get oxytocin. One of them is acts of kindness and acts of generosity. It feels good when we do something nice for someone. It feels good when someone does something nice for us. On this particular day, I did something for someone with no expectation of anything in return. I got a little surge of oxytocin. I felt good. He turned to me and he said, "Thank you. It feels nice when someone does something for us with no expectation of anything in return." He felt good. I walked to the end of the street. I'm waiting to cross the street. And a total stranger who happened to be standing next to me said, "I saw what you did back there. That was really cool." As it turns out, witnessing an act of generosity releases oxytocin, and he felt good. And the best part about oxytocin is the more oxytocin we have in our bodies, the more generous we become. It is Mother Nature's way of trying desperately to get us to look after each other. I can guarantee you that that man who witnessed what I did something nice for somebody that day simply because he saw someone do something nice for somebody that day. So what if we commit to do something nice for someone with no expectation of anything in return? Imagine what happens at work. Imagine what happens at home. Imagine what happens with our friends. But it must be genuine.
Kindness is something we have to practice, something we have to become good at, become proficient at. And so here's my challenge to you. I know this is running a little bit long. I told you I'd try to keep these sparks within 10 minutes, but this is different. So my son is really, really dedicated to getting in shape for basketball. He's doing all of these challenges, 100 push-ups a day for 30 days, or 100 calf raises a day for 30 days, or I want to do 100 planks a day. So he's doing all these things to get in shape and to get fit. And I thought about that, and I thought about, well, if we as Christians are supposed to be different and better, and we need to get in shape too when it comes to something like kindness, but think about if we were able to do it. Think about if everybody practiced kindness over meanness, right? Or kindness, if everybody put the other person first, what would life look like? And more importantly, even if we just did it as Christians, how would other people see us? Would it be possible then for them to want to know more about what we know, and more about God, and more about the Bible, more about what it means to live as a Christian? Think about the impact we could have. Instead of being a Karen, instead of being a Kyle, instead of being angry and got your hands up and ready to fight, and you feel like you're a victim every time you turn around, imagine what would happen if everybody was kind to one another. That doesn't mean you're not going to hold people accountable and they get away with stuff. That just means that you're making an intentional effort to be kind. Wow. Right? I don't know about you, but I get my head around that and I go, that's part of the solution, if it's not the whole solution, right? Is there a better example of God's command to us to love one another as we love ourselves than to be kind to other people? Put other people first, right? Be your parents or your siblings. I know that's a tall order, especially if you got younger ones, right? Your wife, your husband, your uncles, putting other people first, doing acts of kindness for them. What kind of impact? So here's my challenge. I don't expect you to do it for 30 days because they've got to get in shape, right? So let's just try something on a lower level. I'm going to challenge you to take 7 days between now and the end of 2022, 7 days in a row, where you do an act of kindness for someone you don't know. Now, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could just a regular act of kindness. It could be anything, right? And why does it have to be a stranger? Well, there's that passage in the Bible that says, look, how hard is it to love somebody who loves you back, right? So, big deal, right? Even God saying, my love for you is, that's not the example I want you to set, right? I want you to love people that are harder to love people that you don't want to love, right? So find a stranger and show them an act of kindness for 7 days in a row. It doesn't have to be the same person for 7 days. It can just be 7 days, different people, however you want to do it, right? And then note the reaction. And I'm going to go a step further and say, okay, why don't you put those in the comments section of this video and see how people reacted. See how you felt. Did you get a hit of oxytocin when you did something good for people, or did they get one when they saw you doing something good for somebody else? What happened? Did they look at you weird, right? But then you did it and you kept doing it. So try that. And if you want, while supplies last, if you send me an email with what you did and your address and all that stuff, I'll send you one of our brand new It's Cool to Be Kind t-shirts. Email address is bobmcnamara51@yahoo.com. bobmcnamara51@yahoo.com. All right, so go to it. Let's talk soon. Hey, I almost forgot one last thing. I forgot to give you my email address. So how could you email me with your address and information if I don't give you one? Sorry. My email address is bobmcnamara51@yahoo.com. bobmcnamara51@yahoo.com.